All right, welcome in everybody. Patriots post game live on the road as we wrap up Thanksgiving travels. Talking about a big win over the Tennessee Titans. Huge for the Patriots. Obviously, the Titans coming in hobbled, so some people may want to talk about the fact that Tennessee wasn't at full strength. Obviously, Derrick Henry being out, but not only that, AJ Brown, Julio Jones, Tennessee missing a lot of players. And sure, that that's absolutely true, but the Patriots came in here and routed them. And a team that, with most good football teams, you can say like that there's some structure there. Like Mike Vrabel has proven to be a good head coach. Tennessee has other players that have proven. Tannehill's proven to come along a little bit since he's been in that situation. Their offensive line is good. They've been able to find a way to be effective even without Derrick Henry in the games he's missed. They've showed a little bit of something. And, they have players on that defense that have played well this season, and certainly their pass defense hasn't been too good all season long. But a lot of the players for Tennessee defensively, like Simmons on the defensive line has been an absolute beast this season. Jeffrey Simmons, he's had some insane games out there. Harold Landry, among the NFL leaders in sacks this season, he's been incredible. So really, the fact that this Patriots offense was able to do as much as they were able to today, in spite of the fact that they were going up against really good front seven, at least you can say, is something pretty notable, and something that should be worthy of a lot of praise for New England. I mean, they averaged, what was it? How many yards per rush did they average on the ground? But just over 4, and that includes the kneel down from Hoyer. Mac Jones had a couple scrambles too in the game. Obviously, the one that came up short of the first down, people kind of laughed at him for. But really, it was Damian Harris and Rondre Stevenson again on limited carries for both of them. And it seems like that combination is working. I think there was so much talk about, Stevenson or Harris, and talking about which one of those guys would be the player to lead the backfield after Stevenson started to string together a few really good games, and Harris was coming off an injury, and it was like, well, how good is Harris going to be once he comes back and all this stuff. But the combination of the two has been the clear answer, because those two together create such a dominant backfield, being able to spell each other, being able to give each other some breaks on the sidelines. The other one can come in fresh, and they both are so similar in their way, how they attack defenses and the things they're able to do to them. So really a lot of credit has to go to the Patriots running game for stepping up against the front seven of the Titans, which has been pretty good all year. Mac Jones today, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Almost had one pick there that he threw on an attempt to Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith also had a really good game. Had a couple of catches in a row, and it seemed like Mac Jones was kind of trying to force it to him. And he kind of went to a third time towards him and almost paid the price for it. But Tennessee drops it. And honestly, it was other than that, he missed Hunter Henry once. So he had some big notable mistakes. But other than that, a really good game and a career high in passing yards for Mac Jones today. So, in spite of the fact that some people, might look at the game and actually watch the way it was played from Mac Jones and say, well, there were some things here you might change there, whatever. At the end of the day, his stat line looked pretty dang good. I mean, he couldn't get much better than that 72% completion percentage, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So there were some big ones you'd want to have back. The throw to Hunter Henry, the throw that almost got picked off to Jonnu Smith. But other than that, Mac Jones was really, really good today. And I think it's going to almost go overlooked because, again, if you watched the game, you might come away feeling worse about it than what he actually did on paper. But he was solid today. He was solid all the way around, and had put together a really nice performance against Tennessee. And again, one of the better teams in the AFC. Whether you want to say that they were missing some key players or not, yeah, you can make that argument. But good teams have structure. Good teams have a good head coach like Tennessee does. They have other good players. They have, it's not just built around a few guys. So Tennessee was still a formidable opponent to some extent. They missed some kicks. That killed them a little bit in the first half. And, they made some costly mistakes, the fumbles, the pick by Ryan Tannehill. to J.C. Jackson in the end zone down by the red zone. But to dominate this team the way they did, like, it's really impressive. I mean, which team do you think is better? This Tennessee team is currently constructed, or the Jets or the Texans? Like, this Tennessee team right now, if they just go through the rest of the season, this is at least with the talent they have that they had healthy today. If this team played a full season, they might still be like a 500 team or something around that. Obviously, you can't be exactly 500 unless you tie or something with the 17 game schedule, but you get what I'm saying. And I think that honestly, like the way that the Patriots are able to just blow them out by 23 points is incredible. Kendrick Bourne, another guy worth shouting out. Kendrick Bourne had himself one hell of a day, 2 touchdowns today through the air for him, and he's continued to play really efficient and honestly been one of the best value signings across the entire league in the NFL this year. One of the most efficient wide receivers for sure. So he was incredible. I see It's Gear wanted to give Mills a shout out. Mills almost had a pick at one point. Nice pass deflection to stop. I think it might have been Ferkser he was guarding. Might have been someone else. I might have got the name wrong, but I know there was a third down. Tennessee was backed up. Mills had a nice deflection there on one of those drives. And then, obviously the fumble recovery too. So Jalen Mills, honestly, there aren't a lot of players on the Patriots you can point to and say they had bad days. I mean, really, everybody on the Patriots was really, really effective today. Jacoby Myers, again, Jonnu Smith, kind of his revenge game of sorts. Only 3 catches, 49 yards, pretty good though. So Jonnu Smith showed up a little bit today. That's what you want to see. Still want to see a little more from him, but that's good enough for today. And it's a step in the right direction, certainly. And, we can also talk about J.C. Jackson, too, getting his pick now at the top of the AFC in interceptions. He was coming into the game, I think, also, but now 1 away from Trayvon Diggs as well for the NFL lead. So who would have thought anyone would come close to catching that guy at the beginning of the season? But J.C. Jackson just might do it, especially because he's just picked it up so much in these last few weeks. I mean, Jackson early on, I think his only, to start the season, his only 2 picks were against the Jets going into that Panthers game. And then since then, I mean, he has the 2 picks in the Panthers game. I want to see what the exact layout of it is, because the Panthers game comes in week 9. And didn't he only have he had the one other pick against the Jets. So he had 2 picks in that first game against the Jets, another pick in the next game against the Jets. And really these last few weeks, 2 against Carolina, 1 against Atlanta, and now another one today against the Titans. And so he's really picked it up. 4 picks in the last 4 weeks. I mean, what more can you ask for from him? He's been incredible, and he's proven that he's one of the top corners in the league. He's going to get paid like it in the offseason. Like he deserves it. He's really good. And It's Gear saying the run defense is still not great, and It's Gear. I agree with you. The Titans obviously had 2 big days on the ground from Foreman and Hilliard, but it really didn't kill the Patriots. I mean, they were letting the Titans do what they wanted to do on the ground and said, you're just not going to be able to pass it on us. And that plan pretty much worked. It seemed like they were almost inviting the Titans to run as much as they wanted because they knew that they weren't going to be able to win that way. And so, yes, I mean, there were a couple big ones in there that the Titans were able to break, but outside of that, it wasn't a lot of, the run game was really limited for the Titans outside of that, and I don't know. Hilliard still had a big day either way. Foreman, besides his 30-yard carry, I think was 18 of 79 or something, which is okay. It's pretty solid. Now, the Titans, but again, I don't think the Patriots were too concerned about the Titans getting these big run plays on them. I think the Patriots were pretty much content with letting the Titans run as much as they wanted, knowing that you have no passing game today without 2 of the best receivers. And, I guess you can say 2 of the best receivers in the league. Julio isn't quite in that class anymore, but he was for years. So I don't know, still give him the respect. But AJ Brown certainly in that category. And it pretty much worked out in their favor. The Titans couldn't pass the ball, and that's what ultimately led to their downfall today. And that was part of it. The fumbles obviously were a key contributor to their loss. And I see some people in the chat too saying, "What's up, Ronnie? How's it going?" Evan saying, "What's going on?" Glad you guys are filing in a little bit here. But yeah, it was honestly from the Patriots defense. I think that had to have been the game plan because I understand the Titans had a big day on the ground, but it didn't matter. So if that's what the Patriots' plan was, then they executed their plan to perfection. As for some other guys worthy of shouting out, I think we mentioned Kendrick Bourne, just the day he had and how good of a signing he was. I mean, really all around, the Patriots did a nice job spreading the ball around. Jacoby Myers had one of the big catches down the sideline that he was able to kind of moss Byard a little bit on that Kevin Byard a little bit on that one. Jacoby Myers had a big day, 98 yards. I think that might be a season high for him. I'm fairly certain he hasn't surpassed that yet this year. So, a really nice game from him and the Patriots passing game. And that should have been expected. The Titans defense has really struggled against the pass all year, especially against wide receivers. They've been, I think, the worst defense against wide receivers in the entire NFL. So, the fact that Mac Jones had his most passing yards of the season, and obviously of his career, and Jacoby Myers had a season high in yards, and Kendrick Bourne had the 2 touchdowns. It comes against a defense that has been giving up games like that all year long. And Bourne really, for as good of a game as it was from Bourne, and it was a great game from Bourne. I give him all the respect for what he was able to do today. That second touchdown was just and there's no excuse for that for Tennessee. I mean, he just ran down the sideline and wasn't even touched. It was a horrible tackling from Tennessee. I mean, really, you can pull it up now. I'm trying to pull it up on my phone. I want to see how many chances they had to tackle him, but he just ran straight down the sideline. It was awful. I mean, by Tennessee, it was basically a check down. It was 3rd and 6. Mac Jones hits Bourne 1 yard short of the stick. So Bourne makes a nice move to get just ahead of the sticks and get the first down. Then he has, you can see this. Hold on, I'll pull up even the picture of it right now. You can see Kendrick Bourne right here at this moment in the play. I don't think they have auto rotate on. He has 4 Tennessee defenders converging on him right there. 4. And he gets all the way to the end zone on this play. There's just no excuse from that for if you're Tennessee. Someone get over there. He's already that close to the sideline. Just push him out of bounds. There's 4 guys there for Tennessee. 4 guys right there, fully capable of pushing him out of bounds. And no one does it. So, Kendrick Bourne for a great day. He had an incredible game and one of his best games as the Patriots. He continues to be a weapon in this offense. Absolutely 100%, no doubt about it. I'll give him that credit all day long. But that play alone, especially, by the way, at that point in the game, it's 19-13. 19-13. The Titans are still very much in it. If they get a stop on that 3rd down, then all of a sudden you're talking about probably, Patriots not taking a field goal there. That'd be out of Nick Folk's range. And having to punt it away, and now you're in a position again where you have the ball and you have a chance to take the lead if you can get into the end zone and hit the field goal. And what do? They give up this play to Kendrick Bourne where he just runs right down the sideline. He gets a nice little tiny block, it looks like, from Nelson Aguilar on this play, and no one else is able to get him out of bounds. I mean, it's just kind of embarrassing if you're Tennessee, the fact that they allowed Kendrick Bourne to score on that play. And it was kind of, from there, it was just all downhill. They never recovered after that play. That was the turning point. New England goes up 26-13, and then they end up going down. They go for it on 4th down, 4th and goal from the goal line, and J.C. Jackson picks it off, and that's all she wrote. And that's game for the Patriots and the Titans. So the Titans were in it for much of this game, despite the fact that they were shorthanded. They just couldn't capitalize, and that's on them. I mean, it's no easier way to say it than that. They just they couldn't allow that to happen. So, and now the Patriots are in a position where they beat the Titans, which is, by the way, I mean, I know that people are going to go do the whole thing of the Titans were shorthanded. This isn't an important win, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But the Titans even though they didn't have their full complement of players, okay, whatever, sure. If you want to talk about the semantics of the game, go ahead and do that. If we're talking about what the practicality of this game, this was still a huge game for playoff seeding, because now not only are you tied with the Titans in terms of record, but you own the tiebreaker. So now you're in a position where you can legitimately start talking about having a bye, winning the only bye in the AFC. Because remember, there's only one now. you could legitimately have the only bye in the AFC because you beat the Titans today. Like if it comes down to you or the Titans, you own the tiebreaker. So this game was massive in terms of that. Absolutely massive. And I mean, honestly, it's so funny to think that we're on to that, and we're not even talking about whether even making the playoffs is in doubt. I mean, after this game, really, I mean, you have two at the end of the season against the Jaguars and the Dolphins, and again, you have to win those. It's pretty simple. So you're pretty much guaranteed 10 wins at this point. The next 3 weeks are just gravy. Next 3 weeks, and I know that sounds crazy, And look, if we want to start talking about, if we want to start getting into, playoff seeding, the AFC East. If you can win the AFC East, win the division, get that bye. Obviously, these games are important, right? But just in terms of what our expectations were, week one, preseason, I even thought that the playoffs were a little lofty. Saying this team had to make the playoffs. Whether they would or not, we would see. And certainly they've proven to be a playoff team, with what they've done this year. But the fact that they are pretty much guaranteed a spot at this point is crazy. It's insane. And it's a testament to the way they've been able to turn it around, and certainly during this winning streak. It's been impressive. And so now you're in a position where you if you can do some work against the Bills, who are certainly teetering next week, then you could legitimately be the favorites to win the Super Bowl. Forget being a contender, because it went from, are they a playoff contender? Okay, that question was answered. Are they a Super Bowl contender? I think that question's been answered. Yes, they are a contender for the Super Bowl. If they take care of business against the Bills, it goes from contender to favorite. They're no longer just the one of the other teams in the mix. Like, they could be the majority of analysts and experts' picks to go to the Super Bowl. It's crazy. And now tonight could come as quickly as tonight. If the Ravens lose, you're the number one seed in the conference, and you control your own destiny. That is something. That is much further along than I think a lot of people thought the Patriots were going to be with Mac Jones in his rookie season. It's ridiculous. So I'll get into some of the other chats now. Evan saying, is it just me, or has J.C. Jackson been amazing all of a sudden? He was horrible at the beginning of the year. And Evan, I brought it up. I brought up some of J.C. Jackson's stats. There was that whole, I don't want to go as far as to say horrible, because I think that there were certain, like against the Cowboys, the guy who got killed was really Jalen Mills. Jalen Mills had the CeeDee Lamb assignment. CeeDee Lamb roasted the Patriots, so that was less on J.C. Jackson. And again, like the rest of the teams the Patriots played, I don't really think J.C. Jackson was too much of a problem. He just wasn't getting interceptions, and that's what we know him for. So it was a little bit like, you didn't notice him as much. But lately, he's been on a tear. Like, that's absolutely right. J.C. Jackson's been on a tear. I mean, we just mentioned 4 interceptions in the last 4 weeks. Obviously, the touchdown in there, too, that he had against Carolina. He's been a key to this defense, and he has really been the savior. Like, we can talk about what Jalen Mills has done, and Itzkier brought it up earlier, and Jalen Mills needing to step up as the second corner, and he's done that. But J.C. Jackson being able to be that number one corner and step in to Stephon Gilmore's shoes and take over that role and play this well, that has been as key to your defense turning into what it's turned into as anything. I mean, the last 4 weeks, the Patriots have allowed 26 points. 26 points in 4 weeks. That's they're allowing, 6.5 points per game? 6.5 points per game over the last 4 weeks. That's what the Patriots defense is doing. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's so crazy good. That's how good the Patriots are right now. It's really insane. And what's funny is that the 4 teams, like, it's not trash. It's not garbage. Carolina is, they're struggling, but they're competing for the playoffs in the NFC. Cleveland is competing for the playoffs in the AFC. They're right outside. Atlanta is, they're in that mix too in the NFC. Believe it or not, they're after winning today, they're knocking right on the door. So you did it against 4 teams that are, I would say, slightly below average to mediocre. Slightly below average to mediocre. That's who you did it against. And 6.5 points per game is not slightly below average or mediocre. The fact that you did that against those guys, really, really impressive. It's ridiculous. It is. There's no other word for it. And that's Mike. I see you're saying you're here. What's up? And we continue to roll. Let me start off by saying roll Tide and go Pats. And of course, the Alabama Crimson Tide barely escaping the Tigers yesterday. Obviously, a big win there. A lot of Auburn players with the Patriots. So I'm sure Damian Harris and Mac Jones, their performances today were inspired by that late win for Alabama. So certainly that must have helped. Evan's saying, I'd say we need to get at least a split with the Bills and beat the Jags and the Dolphins, and we're set. As far as playoffs, I mean, you should make the playoffs with 10 wins. Look at the field. Look at the field right now. Tell me what 3 teams. Let's just talk wild card for a second. Let's pretend that things don't go perfectly for the Patriots, even though that's how they've been going for the last 6 weeks here. Let's pretend things don't go perfectly for the Patriots, okay? And should I say 6 or 7? I guess I should say 7 weeks, right? So now that has it been that long? No, it's just 6. Okay, still 6. Got a little too far ahead of myself there. All right, just look at the playoff picture and tell me what 3 teams in the wild card are getting to 10 wins and over the Patriots. Because by the way, and if you're going to say the Chargers and the Browns are 2 of them, then remember the Patriots own the tiebreakers over those 2 teams, right? So it needs to be more than just those guys, because the Patriots would immediately win the tiebreaker against these guys. They'd win the seeding. So, if you want to say that one of the Bengals or the Ravens, let's just say the Ravens win the division and it's the Bengals. Okay, the Bengals could be one. I mean, teams. The funny thing though about a lot of these teams competing for the wild cards is they're going to knock each other off. I mean, a lot of these teams in the whether it be in the AFC West or the AFC North, like they're competing with each other. The Broncos, the Chargers, the Raiders, they still all have games against each other. They have to play each other. So not all those teams are going to get there. And we saw today the Steelers and the Bengals, and the Steelers get kind of knocked out of it a little bit. Are they completely out of it? I won't go that far, but getting close for the Steelers to say that their season's over. So, I mean, really, it's not going to be as difficult as I think you're stating there. Like, you just need 2 more wins. If you win 2 of the last 5, you're in. So, and we can talk about. So I feel like even talking about being in anymore is silly. It's like, okay, all right, great. Let's talk about number 1 seed. Let's talk about the division. Let's talk about all this stuff, because that's what it comes down to. So it's it's really impressive. The only thing I would say is that I would caution against resetting expectations for the Patriots. I think that's always a little bit silly. Like, if you came into the season and said the expectations for this team should be to make the playoffs, I would have said, okay, maybe Vegas didn't expect them to. By the way, I would feel like reiterating that. Las Vegas did not expect the Patriots to make the playoffs before the season. They were just outside. If you looked at where all the AFC teams or win-loss expected totals, Patriots were actually on the outside looking in, just barely. But, whatever. Let's say your expectations were for them just to make the playoffs. They've done that. Thus far, they've met those expectations. So I would caution against you saying, well, no, now the expectation is to win the division. Now the expectation is to make the Super Bowl. I always hate that. It's like, I mean, I feel like now you're setting the bar way too high for this team. If anyone said the expectation for this team is to make the Super Bowl before the season started, you would have said that's insane. So why now is it like, yes, they should make the Super Bowl or this season's a failure? Like, no, that's ridiculous. If the Patriots should make the playoffs at this point. At this point, I will allow for you to say that if they don't make the playoffs, it's a failure, given the spot they're in. But like, if they don't win the division, that's not a failure. It's still a great success. Like what you're doing right now with a rookie quarterback is insane. It's incredible. It's really it's awesome. I mean, it's you can't say more about it. And I give the Patriots all the credit in the world for the run they've been on. I give Bill Belichick all the credit in the world for what he's turned this team into. Like this is special, special stuff. It really is. And if they end up, losing in the wild card round, then you still have a great future ahead of you. You still have a young quarterback surrounded by a considerable amount of talent for the next couple of years. You have Hunter Henry signed. You have Ramondre Stevenson signed. You have Damian Harris signed. You have Kendrick Bourne signed. Okay? Like, you can put something together. You can even, if you want, you can do whatever you need to do with Nelson Aguilar because it seems like he hasn't worked out perfectly this year and bring in another weapon for him. I mean, you have a team that should be competing for at least the next half decade. I mean, especially with Mac Jones on his rookie contract. Like that's what you're talking about. So, I think that whatever happens for the rest of the season, save for one or two crazy things, you should be this season's been a out and out success. And everything from here is just it's Thanksgiving was a few days ago. It's leftover gravy. That's what it is. It's been that good for the Patriots this season. Leave some more stuff in the chat if you guys want to talk about it. We might wrap up here soon. Being that it is Thanksgiving, I am on the road. I gotta get going here in a little bit. But again, the offense, you can't say more about what they did today. Putting 36 on the board, even though Bill Belichick even came out after the game and he said they left some things on the table. He said that they had a few plays they'd want back. And I think that we all know the plays he's talking about. Hunter Henry was wide open, had 5 yards on his defender, and Mac Jones missed him at the end of the half. Kyle Van Noy had a pick in his hands. He had an interception in his hands, and then the Patriots let Hilliard run for 68 yards on them and score the touchdown. So if that doesn't happen, then things could it could have been even bigger of a win for the Patriots if a couple of different things broke differently. It couldn't have. The performance today, you can't say enough about it. I mean, the fact that they could have legitimately hung at least. I mean, and think about all the drives they had to settle for field goals on. I mean, you could talk about could add another touchdown with the Hunter Henry play. Could add another field goal because Nick Folk missed one. That's another 3 points that they left on the board. Like the fact that we come out and say, well, they left at least 7 to 10 points on the board between the Van Noy pick, but that could have been at least 3. The Hunter Henry touchdown that could have been at least 4 more. The missed kick by Folk that could have been 3 more. Like, they could have hung 46 on this team today. And again, not a defense that you should say is horrible. I mean, their pass defense is horrible. But their front seven, I mean, with Harold Landry and Simmons, Jeffrey Simmons, who've been great this year, both of those guys were pretty much neutralized. Neither one had a sack today. The Titans were held to 2 total sacks in this game, and those guys are menaces. I mean, Harold Landry's up near the top of the league in sacks this year. He's right now the NFL lead. I mean, you talk about it's basically him and Judon are pretty much right neck and neck with each other. So the fact that he's that they were able to neutralize him like they did says a lot about them. I mean, the Titans as a team are, I think, let me see if I get this right. 9th in the league in sacks this year. 9th in the NFL in sacks. 27 of them this year. In what was it coming into this week? 11 games. 27 and 11 games, and you held them under their average, considerably under their average. I mean, that offensive line is really coming together. It really is. Between Trent Brown, who has, I mean, the offense has been night and day with Trent Brown without him. I mean, it's pretty much pretty evident, The 45 they had against Cleveland, 25 last week. I know pick six contributed in that too for against Atlanta, but you know, in their shutout win against them. And then this week, you put up the 36 against Tennessee. Trent Brown, just you can't say enough about how good he's been. He might be your best player on offense. I don't think that's a stretch at all. Like Trent Brown, you know, their running game between Stevenson and Harris is really good. Mac Jones has been really good, but Trent Brown is arguably your best offensive player. You know, he's just been really incredible on that line, and you can see why they valued getting him this offseason so highly. A couple more comments, and then we'll wrap things up, guys. Pats were playing kind of soft in the first half because the Titans were missing some players. I don't know exactly what you mean by that, Nick. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit. If you're saying they're playing down to their level of competition, or you're saying they were playing possum for some reason in the Titans. But I don't know how the Titans missing players contributes to the Patriots playing kind of soft, but certainly they came out in the second half and played a lot better. I mean, you know, and things kind of were slow there in the on the first couple of drives there, and until the Kendrick Bourne touchdown kind of blew things open, and then obviously the interception by Jackson and the run by Harris into the end zone. Like things came together pretty quickly for them. Really only took those 2 touchdowns to break the game open. So I mean, and the defense was just. You know, you could they were kind of had you know, they let the Titans get down to the goal line there at the end, but obviously Jackson picked them off and stifled that drive. So, you know, they made the plays they needed to make, and that's how they were able to come away with the win. It's Gear saying, do you think Onwenu should be playing more? It was interesting to see that they kind of they switched up the offensive line in that way today, and he had to come in for Karras a little bit. And they were like making those kind of substitutions. I don't know why. I mean, Onwenu to me, I mean, considering his youth, how well he played last year as a rookie, like you should be prioritizing putting him on the field and continuing to develop him, because he could be a key player for you for the next decade. But it was surprising, at least, and I certainly would want him on the field, but with the way the offensive line is rolling, I wouldn't want them to change very much. You know, from what they're going with. I mean, it felt like, you know, Dante Scarnecchia always had the magic sauce, and you wondered at the beginning of the season when they had to do all these crazy substitutions and they had all these injuries, you were like, oh, should the Patriots think about getting getting Scarnecchia back, or what should they do here now that they don't have Scarnecchia, that things aren't working the way they should be? And they figured it out. They have figured it out for sure. And you're saying, do you think Stevenson should be getting more snaps than Harris? I think, you know, I kind of mentioned it before that I personally like Stevenson a little bit more, but I think the combo of them, I'm perfectly content with them complementing each other the way they do. But that's going to do it for the post-game show, guys. Stick around on the YouTube channel, because we're going to have Celtics pregame coming up very, very shortly. So you're going to want to be sure to tune in for that with the Bannertown build-up. So, and we'll have post game later on the channel. That might be TBD. We're still not sure about post game. We're still sorting that out as everybody gets settled from Thanksgiving. But I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for tuning into the post game show. We'll be back again next week for the Bills game. Now another huge game for the Patriots on their schedule, and a potential chance to take a dominant lead in the AFC East. So we'll see you guys for that one. Be sure to tune into Celtics pregame, and we'll see you next time.